And we are back. It feels like it's been ages.
It does. It's because we skipped a week. And then I feel like whenever we skip a week, it always feels like it's a long time because it's, well, technically 2 weeks since we check in. So, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it's been a while.
Mhm.
So we're back though. It's Black Her Story, and hopefully you guys will tune in. Say hello if you are coming in the space. Keishan, I'm gonna let you lead tonight. I are you or is that not a good energy? We didn't even talk about that.
That's fine.
You,
I'm like,
you just
okay.
blew back in. Maybe not. I'm gonna let you rest. Next week, Keisha, because she's. I don't know if you are having any jet lag. I mean, you've. So yeah, let's get into it because Keyshawn
We
has
can
been
get
on
into
the
it. Yeah,
road.
I'm
She's been
definitely like,
on the road. We have a
yeah,
really juicy topic tonight.
we do.
But we always. My name is Kenya. This is Black Her Story. I'm sorry, I want to introduce myself. This is Keyshawn. She'll introduce herself more. But we try to come here on Thursday nights to just kind of have a conversation on topics that impact Black women and tell
Hmm.
our stories, our perspectives. I am a certified health coach, an astrology self-care coach. I'm an educator, I'm faculty at a university, and I'm an artist. But in this space, I really just want to be Kenya.
That's
Just
nice. Just want to be
yeah.
yourself. It's interesting. I'm Keyshawn for those who are seeing this for the first time. I am also a entrepreneur, primarily focused consulting and coaching and business in both personal spaces and particularly in the field of mental health. And it's nice to be able to show up in a space as just Keyshawn, not Keyshawn, comma, the calm coach, comma, the consultant,
Comma,
comma, the comma, comma,
comma,
comma, all the commas. It's nice to
comma.
just, it's a blessing and a privilege to be able to wear so many hats professionally. And it's
Right.
also nice to take off all of the hats and just be me is nice too. So I can appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my TV just came on and it's very loud. You
Okay.
probably can hear it.
I
Can you
can't
hear
hear
it?
anything. Yeah, I can't hear anything particularly.
Really? It just came on really
Did it come on
loud. All
by
right.
itself?
So I'm gonna yeah, well, you know what it was is I forgot I had paused it. You know how you pause the TV and like
Oh, yeah, and it's like, "Okay, are you still watching?" And it's like,
right, and so then it kinda, like, says, "Well, we're gonna come on anyway." So this is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take off my camera for a minute,
okay,
and if you can just, like, do a you know, how the MC
that's fine.
kinda, like, breaks for
Release me.
time.
That's
I'll be
fine.
right back.
That's fine. I just got back from New Orleans last night after an 8-day trip down to New Orleans for my son's college graduation on Saturday, and very proud and excited and happy that he completed such a huge accomplishment and milestone in his life. And also just learned a little bit of a lesson about travel. When you plan a trip, I find that sometimes you think that you're going to do a lot of things and you're going to get a lot of stuff in, and then you get onto the trip and you recognize that you didn't take into consideration like the time that it would take to do all the things, or being in a different time zone, or unexpected accommodation changes. I felt like I was on tour for the last 8 days. I didn't even typically when I travel, I stay in one location, if I'm unless I'm traveling to multiple countries or something. But I typically stay in one location. I unpack my bag. I'm the person who like moves into the hotel room or like moves into the Airbnb. I like to hang out my clothes. I like to put stuff in the drawers because when it comes to like being there, I don't want to open and close my suitcase 75 times.
Well,
I didn't do
especially as
that this
long
trip.
as you were there. Like, I think
Especially,
if it's more than 2 days, you
yeah,
gotta
you
unpack.
want to
Yeah.
unpack. I did not unpack this trip because instead of staying in one location, we stayed in 3 different locations over the course of 8 days in the same city. And that was I won't do that again. I won't do that again, and I think that contributed to the level of exhaustion that I felt when I got back. But, yeah, otherwise, it was a great experience. I'm glad my family was able to be present. Most importantly, just really grateful that my son's father and his wife and I were able to come together and bring both of our families together in a very loving and celebratory way for my son's big accomplishment. That's the
Mm.
thing that I was feeling the most about, and it turned out to be the easiest experience I could have imagined. So I'm really grateful for that.
That's awesome. No, that's family, and co-parenting and co-familying and all of that. That's just really, really important and really putting your kids, as the focus and
Mhm.
and putting aside whatever, but just trying, very hard to create an environment of fun and love and support, especially at graduation. Because graduation, yes, it's very hectic. It's a hectic there's it has a lot of a lot of different things to it. It's very, you're happy, you're excited, but then there's all these other things that you're managing. And then also this is it, like you're watching your baby like now hit another
Yeah.
interesting milestone. So it's but congratulations again. I've been texting you and telling you
Thank
like
you.
that's been awesome. And it was really good to see the pictures and see you guys in New Orleans. And I saw Karma dancing on the street and all the things. It was all the things. I loved
Yeah.
it. I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
So well, we have a hot topic tonight, and
Mhm.
I don't really the only thing I do wanna make an announcement, this is a
Okay.
plug, and I'm gonna be saying this every week, okay? Because I always got things going on, but I think after this thing, I get a little bit of a rest. But we just opened up registration for. I'm doing a summit on reproductive health, specifically as it relates to our vaginas. Okay, so it's called the Healthy Vagina Monologues, and beyond the vagina. It's actually that's just kind of a play of words. I really want as women, we're watching. I hope I know we're seeing all that's happening, legally to reproductive health. Understand that when you're passing laws, you're really and doing these things. It's bigger than just abortion. I wish we could kind of understand that because there's so much about a woman's reproductive health that is completely misunderstood, never talked about, not a part, no holistic spaces to really help us understand how our mind impacts, how our soul impacts our reproductive. Our reproductive health is what sets us apart, right? It is like it's the root, it's the main space of so much of us. And so my hope with this event is to educate all ages of women. I am, my space as I focus on women of color, multicultural women. But there are so many things that I have learned in the past 4 months at 50 about reproductive health that makes no sense that I'm learning it at 50 as a healthcare professional. Makes no sense. I've learned things that have literally changed my life for the past few months. And so I just really became very passionate about the fact that we focus on certain things and we're missing some other parts of our reproductive health that connects to so many other parts of our lives. So this summit, we have an OBGYN who's she takes a holistic approach to how she treats her clients, her patients. We have a physical therapist who's a pelvic floor physical therapist, which means she focuses on reproductive health as a physical therapist. Yes, she gives your vagina exercises. Okay. She gives stretches, things. I mean, I've learned more from her, which is crazy. And I'm a physical therapist, but I didn't learn what she learned because I went to school 300 years ago. And then we have a pleasure coach, a a coach who's certified in erotic blueprint, which is a specific um, assessment for you for you to determine what is your pleasure zone. Like, what do you like? How do you receive pleasure? Have you ever sat and literally just been a receiver of pleasure, where someone just tapped into figuring out what you feel? And that gets us all into a bunch of things. That gets us into, are we only having sex as women to please others? Or are we also having it just to receive? So we're getting all into there. And libido as you age, why does that change or not or whatever? So we open our doors for registration. This week we were doing a lot of discounts. Right now we do have a $10 discount off. We just finished a 50% one. So I'd love for y'all to tap in, and you just go to onedaysummit.eventbrite.com. And I'll put that later again because we want women. I really want you to be a part of this. It's an all-day virtual summit. You can kind of pop in, pop out. We're doing free giveaways, and I'll be announcing the international retreat that we'll be doing for 2024. So by coming to that, you'll get that announcement. So that's my plug. I'll say it again later.
Nice. That's exciting. I should do something. I was thinking about this on the plane on the way back. I was like, I've been invited to be a part of a couple of events like the summit that I mentioned last week, sponsored by Daybreak, that's happening in
Yeah.
June, and another a summit that I was invited to be a part of. And I realized that at the beginning of this year, well, end of last year, beginning of this year, I set an intention to be of service to support the growth of businesses of women of color, particularly Black women. And I realized that by setting that intention, I also intentionally haven't planned any big launches for myself because of the energy and the time commitment that goes into supporting
I was like, girl,
these other
no,
programs.
you
So I'm
just
like,
leave it
I just
be.
get to show I and it's so funny because I remember specifically writing down in an intention journal, I just want to show up and be on the mic for my 15 minutes or my
Come
30 minutes. I
on.
don't want to plan shit. I don't want to do
That's
shit. I
that's
just want to
my
show up. And it's so great to be able to do that.
2024.
That's you next year.
Yes.
Yes.
No, for real though.
Yeah.
Seriously, like I've really I mean I really wanted to do this because like I said, I've just learned I just can't believe the things I've learned that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And I promise you, when it comes to fibroids, when it comes
Mm,
to just literally, like I said before, constipation, just not even
mhm.
understanding how much that's tied most likely into your pelvic floor, which is a part of
Right.
then your reproductive health. So that was the only but listen, I have a pretty major thing that I'm launching in the fall. And it's more on my artist side.
Mhm.
And so after that though, I just said, I really, yeah. I just
Mhm.
I yeah. And it's not, I love to do the events. It is the promotion. Listen, secret that I'm gonna expose, and then we're gonna get in our topic. I do
Mhm.
not like, I do not like promotion. I do not like social media promotion. I really don't. And a lot of people say, "You've got to." I'm like, I actually despise it.
No,
And
no.
I do. I despise it. Hi Tosh. Oh, Tosh is here, and she's actually
Hi.
one of our presenters during our summit. And so I'm gonna be
Excellent.
bringing her in, and
Okay.
other people who will be presenting a little as we get closer to the date. The date is June 24th, so we have some time. But
Okay.
yeah, no, the whole promotion game, and the more you learn about marketing and promotion, the more
Mhm.
it really can be incredibly overwhelming. So
Well, yeah,
I
I
just hit
mean, if you
pause.
think about it, like huge corporate the brands that we know, household names, Nike, Apple, Target, etc. They have entire teams and budget and people that are dedicated solely to their marketing. That's all they do, all day every day. So when you're running a business on your own, even if you have a virtual assistant or, a helping
I don't
hand here
mean
and there, a marketing team is what one person is trying to do when you're doing it on your own as an entrepreneur. So, absolutely, it's going to be exhausting. Absolutely, it's going to be overwhelming because of all the moving parts that go into what it's required to be able to fill the seats and get the word out the way that you wanted to. And so, yeah, I can see why
it's a
social
lot.
media
And
might be a lot. Yeah.
And I really wish that people, and I don't like to, and therefore I don't really, I use social media to a certain degree, but try to use more organic and other directed ways to
Mhm.
help people. But I just hope that general, public, y'all understand that, there's a lot going on the other side. But we could talk about that forever. I want us to dig into this topic. This is a
Okay, let's do it.
potentially sticky topic. So, Keyshawn, okay. I came up with this topic.
Mhm.
Religion and its impact on Black women. Tasha and I kind of briefly, she's in the audience, we briefly touched on this. We were doing a catch-up call, and I have a lot of feelings about this. And I don't wanna be ostracized. I don't wanna be pushed to the side. But this right here to me, I think, is really this impact,
Mm,
while the intention I know is for it to be very positive,
mhm,
I don't think the impact is always such. Now that might have
mm.
seemed abstract, but I wanna hear your when you saw this topic, what came to mind for you and what kind of resonated for you?
The first thing that I thought of when I looked at this particular topic, religion and its impact on Black women, the first thing that came up is the question of, you know, religion versus spirituality. Because I know that, there was a lot floating around on TikTok recently from like one particular woman, pastor slash preacher who used to be gay and now she's not gay. And she was kind of talking down about African spirituality and practices and as it relates to Black women and so on, right?
Oh,
So when
wow.
I first saw the topic, I was looking at it like I need to determine if we're looking at the impact of religion, like the in the traditional sense of an organized system of beliefs and practices and rituals, or if we're looking at spirituality, which is more of a personal, individualized experience that kind of incorporates lots of different things. So if I look at religion and its impact on Black women, my first thought goes back to, okay, when were we first introduced to religion as Black people? And it goes all the way back to enslavement and all the way back to colonization and all those things. And so if I think about how it impacts Black women from that perspective, it's such, like you mentioned, it's sticky. And I think it's also such a double edged sword because for some Black women, their religious beliefs that might have been passed down to them from their elders or the people who raised them are part of the foundation of their identity. And so the impact of the religious practice is really determining who they are in some cases. It serves as their moral compass or it serves as the perspective that they use to make big decisions about their lives without them necessarily taking the time to really dissect the beliefs and see if they really are applicable to their lives today. So versus when I look at spirituality, spirituality feels more like a place that we arrive to where we might borrow some elements of the belief systems or practices that we were given through religion and we use the spirituality to frame our identity in a way that feels more authentic versus something that was just given to us or programmed onto us. So those are some of the first thoughts that came to me when I first looked at the topic.
Yeah, those are all the thoughts I had. That's why
Okay, great.
I and maybe even more intense in that, to your point, kind of defining religion versus spirituality. Um, and that in itself, I think, is problematic. The fact that, we're still not understanding how to hold both. We're still kind of in this struggle bus of, well, I'm spiritual, well, I'm religious. It's like, okay, why can't you have a certain level of practice in terms of traditional religion, but still tune into your spirituality? So I'm gonna say this. I like I said, I have some pretty intense feelings about this, and I'll just use my experiences personally, as well as the work that I do, as I'm working more with women. And um, you know, I did the retreat I did in Costa Rica last year. I had a whole day where we just talked about alternative pathways to spirituality. And the first question I asked the women is, tell me about your religion. Tell me about how you understand it to be. And the thing that was really striking for me, and I figured this, but it just became really clear when I heard each woman, there was this weird disconnect. Like, well, I did it because, yeah, I had to go to church when I was little, and my mom and this, and I grew up in the Catholic church. I went to Catholic schools, and so then I did this, and so then when I became adult, I go to this church when I go, but I don't know if I really go. I mean, it had nothing to do with feeding the soul. Like, it was all very transactional. That was the energy that I got. And I think as Black women, we can't afford to be transactional when it comes to our souls. And so I think, I think unfortunately, to your point, the history of how religion was placed, how the conditioning of religion and how it has been placed in our lives, it to me has left a lot of women, Black women, still wanting more and maybe not even understanding as such. Um, and the other thing, observant. So I just held an astrology, which really bothers me that people think astrology is some kind of interfering with religion. That really, really bothers me, really, really badly, because that is completely not true. But what I did this astrology where I was talking, I invited women to come in. I mentioned it on here before. We're talking about the moon sign and how
Mhm,
that relates to your mother and the
mhm,
relationship you have with your mother. Astrology is nature. It really is. And it's just showing kind of how nature impacts us energetically.
mhm.
And usually when I'm hosting things, and this was, you had to pay a $10 holding fee and then you're going to get it back if you attend. So it was basically free. Okay. So a lot of times when I do the free type of events or things, you'll have, 20 people sign up and you'll be lucky if you get 50%, right? People, so in my head, okay, I'd like to get 8 to 10 women. 17 of the 19 women came. And to me, that showed we want more. We want a better understanding of who we are. And I just feel like that religion, I don't know if religion is giving us the belly of what we are. In fact, it may be restricting and pushing us almost away from that, at least in some practices and from what I am hearing. So I feel like the impact, and again, I'm gonna be ostracized and criticized, but I don't feel that it has given us what we need fully.
Probably
Hence,
not.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
especially I think my dad and I do on Saturday mornings called Meditate on the Word, and he is what I consider to be a biblical scholar. He studied the Bible, he was raised Catholic and became Baptist, became a preacher, all the things. And then right before the pandemic hit, chose to walk away from a church, walk away from a religious organization, step down from a position of leadership because the math wasn't mathing anymore, so to speak. Just it
yes,
wasn't clicking anymore in the same way. And so now his practice, his spiritual practice looks a lot different than it did maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I feel like something similar to that is happening for a lot of Black folks, particularly Black women, where we're starting to take another look at these religious beliefs and religious practices and doctrine and dogma that was kind of force fed to some of us, depending on how you grew up. And we're looking at it and starting to reevaluate the validity of it, the authenticity of it, whether or not it's relevant to us anymore, whether it's relatable to us anymore. And I like what you said about we're recognizing the restrictive components of it, because for anybody, I mean, obviously there's tons of religions: Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity seems to be the one that's most related to Black folks in my experience. In America, there's more Black Christians probably than there are Black Buddhists or Black Hindus or Black Jews or Black Muslims for the most part. So when we think about how religious practices have been utilized to discriminate, to marginalize, to oppress women in particular, especially now in our government, it makes it even more difficult to embrace the practice the way that it once was embraced before, because a critically thinking mind just won't allow us to do that anymore. So I'm
right,
noticing that change as well.
exactly. And I think what's happening, to your point, which you just really laid out really beautifully. If my critical thinking mind is saying something is off, but my conditioned emotional um, what are people going to think? How am I going to be judged? Mind and fears come into battle. What do I do? And so then what that can, I think, happen is leave, and I'm watching this leaving a lot of Black women like, well, I just, I'm not really this. I'm just not really. So there's no practice.
Right.
There's no practice happening because they're mitigating between should I something about this is still not giving me completely on a consistent, but this other thing, this vague idea of spirituality, what does that mean? And if I leave that, what's my family, my friends, my communities? So now I just kind of sit in the middle and don't do, and so now
Anything.
we're not
Yeah.
getting any practice because understand that either one of them, spirituality it is a practice. It should be a practice so that you are actually having impact in your life. It's not just I believe in God. And what? How do you practice that belief?
Right.
How do you practice your faith? Not just I have it. How do
Right.
I practice it? And
Right.
I think that's where religion in certain space, especially I think, my most familiarity is with Christianity too. The only
Mhm.
practice that I really am really seeing is that of reading the Bible. And in how does that still then implement the practice in your life? So we've got some nice conversation going here on the side. We have Tosh and From Lack to Legacy. Thank y'all for chiming in. Tosh, I'm going to put up what you just said here. Religion creates a lot of guilt and shame for women to own their sexuality. Many religious practices push sexual repression.
Absolutely. I think there's something which it may be obvious, but something that I feel like needs to be pointed out about religion as the system. Religion, capitalism, these are systems that were designed to create control, hierarchy, order amongst people. And if with even the smallest amount of research, you'll discover that religion and the systems that they're built upon were primarily developed by patriarchal systems were designed to oppress women. So it's not a shock that, like, to her point, most, if not all, religious practices are designed to repress women, not just sexually, but period, repress their voice, repress the way they dress, repress the way they communicate, the way they express themselves. So for women to get into this space where we're in now, where there definitely seems to be a bit of a liberation happening for women, or maybe even like an awakening happening for women, specifically in this country, where we thought we were doing all right. You know what I mean? We look at other countries and say, oh, that third world country, look what they're doing to women there, or oh, that country, look what they're doing to women there. But when it happened here last year, where our Supreme Court said, oh no, we gonna take away your rights here too. Y'all ain't safe either. It it shook people. I think it woke a lot of people up. And when we take it back to the fact that our legislation is rooted in religious practices that are designed to oppress, we have to question it. We can't just sit back and, you know, wave our little fan back and forth in the pew and act like everything's okay, because it's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To your point with the system. So and I've said this many times. So my partner, his name is Barry. Barry, one of the main reasons we connect so strong is from our kind of spiritual connection, and we are able to have long, extensive conversations about spirituality. And what's really beautiful is he has his master's in divinity, so he has studied this from an academic space.
Hmm.
He has taught me so much about, he's like, no, I'm gonna, this is literally, you can go find, this is not stuff that is hidden like this.
Right.
To your point, religion was formed as a way to control and create. This was, we're talking hundreds or whatever, thousands of years ago or whatever,
Hmm.
but to position people in general in a space where where power could be implemented, could be, so there would be some level of dominion over people. And we have to understand that as women, we're beginning to start to click into this. when you really, he has taught me this, and I wasn't aware of this. If we talk about where are the women in the Bible, or what are the different books of women, why do I only see two or three? The versions of the Bible that we see, understand that there are several more books that were written, several. A strong, I think he said 20 plus of those books were women, and we landed with like two.
Mhm.
So women had, and so to Tasha's point with this sexual, this is where this ties in. We have made sexuality to mean sex in
Right.
our country, to mean only sex, like literal the act itself. Whereas when you really peel back and better understand sensuality, sexuality for women, and it's even historically, ancient wise, the goddesses and so forth, this is where our power lied. So if you can now go and think systematically, how can we take dominion? Well, we can shift what the meaning of all of these things mean, so that guilt, shame, all those things can kind of fall, because then we can strip of the very power that we don't have. So there's cycles that are happening. There was patriarchy, but before patriarchy, women were actually, there was a lot of power. If you study this, and I'm learning this now, the power of the goddess, it was God and goddess. It
Yeah.
wasn't just God. Okay. And so women were known for our immense strong power, and it was rooted within our connection to sexuality. And I want to say, is it Audre Lorde? Who is it that I think that wrote the whole piece on erotica, and
Mhm.
how our erotica is actually not sex, not porn, not that. That's what the systems have made it to be, so that we would
Mhm.
feel shame toward and get disconnected from the very power that was naturally bestowed in us, and our
Right.
connection to our sensuality. Because what that is that's our connection to our intuition, and into our empowerment, into our internal, into our ability to receive, and not just to get into our act mode.
Right.
So this is really deep. And, I think if we study this more, we have to ask more questions. But in the meantime, I do think it's leaving women, especially Black women, in this kind of conflict. I had a very good friend say, I'm in Bible study and I'm learning one thing, but I'm hearing you talk about astrology, and that seems really interesting, but I'm really conflicted. You make astrology seem so beautiful. And I'm like,
Because it is. Well, and I think it's also I think what also is
and that's
happening
not
is that
religion. Astrology is not
yeah, right,
religion.
right. I think what's also happening is that I say this to my dad often. In 2023, we have access to more information than we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. So if you can imagine as a Black woman, if you're watching this, when you were first introduced to religion, when someone first took you to Sunday school or put a Bible in your hand or taught you the story about Jonah and the whale or whatever, if you had access to the information that we have access to now, it might not have been as easy for you to just go along with it and believe it. Now, when religion is presented to people, they're able to go through a litany of resources to say, well, wait a minute, actually, the book of Enoch was left out. There's 14 extra books of the Bible that weren't included in the Apocrypha. And then there was actually the Canaanites who decided that they were going to leave some things out. And actually, we can learn about this stuff now. We can see and understand about the people who pieced together those 66 books that a whole religion was built upon. And so now when someone introduces astrology, it's no longer just those little horoscope scrolls that were next to the checkout counter at the grocery store. Now people are saying, oh no, this is actually a way for us to gain a deeper understanding about our existence, about the whys behind how we function and understand our connection to the stars and the that we're all occupying together. It's like it's taking a little bit of the fantasy out of religion and the fantasy even out of astrology and making it really practical And that's what causes resistance to those who created the systems, because we're starting to dismantle them with knowledge, with information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And really the Bible, and people don't like to hear this, but it is like the book of astrology, because
Yeah.
we have to remember at the time, I keep trying to tell people, we didn't have Google. We didn't have encyclopedias. We didn't have a phone. We didn't have paper and pencil and all of these things. Okay.
Right.
These are actually part of our modern era, of things. And so what we did have in ancient times is nature. We've always had nature. We've always had the skies. So a lot of what you're reading biblically, and how the, three wise men, and just Christmas sun, there's so much symbolism. Even the
Yeah.
symbols that are in the way they write the symbols of the zodiac is in reference to kind of I was just analyzing for Virgo,
Mm,
VRIG, Virgin, Virgo. And Virgo is a sign of a lot of perfection. Okay. Mary the Virgin. And then the symbol for Virgo, actually, it's a M, like Mary. And then it has like the Jesus fish at the bottom,
mm.
like sits at the bottom. This is how tied in. It really is very tied in.
Yeah.
But that takes another thing. I want to keep lack to legacy. She's been saying some things too. So let me
Okay.
put I want to put up what she has here. Da, da, da. Come on, mouse. Let me show my mouse on my computer. Yes, we want real authenticity in our spiritual lives too. This is yes. I think we're finally starting, especially those of us who getting, because we're going through a lot of life. And it's like, okay, well, how am I supposed to I'm praying, and yes, I have blessings. I'm grateful. I have my job. I have my home. I have, the majority, of my faculties and all the things, but I'm still missing something. And
Mm.
so I think I hear so many women say, well, I should just be grateful. No, it's okay to miss something, because we want some authenticity in our lives, spiritual lives, and all of that. So
I think
totally.
we're starting to see that the same level of authenticity, to her point, that we're expecting in our interpersonal relationships, family, friends, partners, etc. We want to show up authentically. We want authentic, interactions from others. Why would we not apply that same want, need, or desire to our spiritual relationship, with whatever that might be? And I know that, for kind of to the point I was making earlier, I can't think of this woman's name because I just refuse to commit it to memory. But this woman who was, floating around TikTok, who was essentially saying that Black women utilizing practices that are connected to indigenous spiritual rituals, like smudging or meditation or working with crystals or candle, or things like that, saying that it was witchcraft. Well, people would say the same thing about astrology, that it was of the devil. And it just reminds me of this movie, Adam Sandler, this movie called The Water Boy, where his mother would say everything was the devil. Electricity is the devil. Like, everything was bad. And it was like, that's how goofy some of these practice beliefs are at this point, where it's like, okay, is everything bad? And so you mentioned something earlier, Kenya, about, for some, when they consider, for some Black women in particular, when they consider maybe stepping away from some of the rituals or the practices that are connected to their religious belief that they were introduced to, that they feel like they might be left with nothing to sustain them. It's like, okay, if I'm not praying every single day at this time of day, or if I'm not going to this church building or getting onto this Zoom every week, what am I going to do to sustain me spiritually, or to feed me spiritually? And like you mentioned, something as simple as going outside and connecting with nature might feed you in a way that you weren't expecting. Or sitting down on the beach or in a park with a journal and just letting thoughts come out of you, or writing questions for the creator and seeing what answers come. For me, stepping away from religion and stepping more into my spiritual practice was about taking out the middleman. I don't need to go anywhere to talk to God. I don't need to do anything in particular to connect with the creator or to source. I can just really focus on going inward and developing from the inside out, versus going out and seeking it from somewhere else.
Right. But we've been so conditioned to humanize God.
Exactly.
We're gonna hurt God's feelings if we don't go to church.
Right.
I mean, literally, God is hurt because I've heard this, God is hurt because, and I'm like, oh my gosh, just even understanding the energy of source and what that even means. We've got some more good comments. I'm going to put them up here so we can, talk about them. Tosh said, as Black women, we have to ask ourselves who benefits from us, not questioning what's being fed to us. That's deep, Tosh. And it's an excellent point. Think about it. Because don't think things are just accidental. I was just talking to somebody like, was that, how is it that all of us feel like this?
It's
Well,
very intentional.
it's extremely intentional. And we have to begin to ask questions. And on top of this, and she's a part of our Tasha's going to be a part of our Healthy Vagina Monologues, our summit, talking about pleasure.
Mhm.
And so she is certified as an erotic blueprint coach. She's also has her master's in counseling, so she's very holistic in the way she's kind of looks at pleasure. So, and she's going to be talking about it in the summit. But we really have to create safe spaces
Yeah.
also for women to ask these questions and not feel judged, be able to say, yeah, I feel like, yes, this person is only benefiting from me being kind of suppressed. What do I do with that? We
Mhm.
have to, I think this is why I'm taking I've always been, and I told you guys this, I didn't learn astrology last week. I've been doing this since I was little. I didn't talk about it because I didn't feel safe.
Right.
And I didn't feel safe because I felt like so much judgment. I've been accused of being a witch. I've been accused, although I think we have a complete misunderstanding of even what witch even means, because
Yep.
we've watched way too many movies and we've come to decide that that equals devil.
Something
And so
bad.
that's
Right.
that's a whole nother conversation. But at any rate, when I'm being called that, that wasn't out of light. That was that was out of,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was out of negativity.
Right.
And so when you're being called a witch, when you're saying you're practicing, demon stuff, why am I going to talk about it? Right. But I finally was like, this is ridiculous, because I can't tell you how many aha moments that the people that I've been working with, as they're beginning to better just understand themselves. That's all it is. It's just to have an understanding. So just huge.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of to her point, the person or the people who benefit from us not knowing ourselves are the people who seek to keep us under control or keep us oppressed. It's like the analogy with the two fleas in the jar, and there's two fleas in a jar and the jar has a lid on it and they're trying to jump up and get out of the jar, but they keep hitting their head on the lid, and someday someone takes the jar off, but they just don't even jump up any higher because they don't think they can get out. So it's like understanding
Come
the
on,
more that
Keyshawn.
we know ourselves, the further that we can go, the more power we have, the more access we create, the deeper our connections become with each other. But if we're all stuck in these little jars with this little lid that says, no, you don't need to know that. No, no, you just need to keep practicing this religion and just keep wearing them long skirts and keep keeping your mouth shut and keep, stay in your little corner. And that's what's best for you because we decided, whoever who put these systems together, it's like that's not real for us anymore. And I think that, like you mentioned, with the or even with witchcraft. Last I checked, there was a whole movement about black girl magic. I'm like, oh, so we can be black girl magic, but we can't practice magic. Which one is we witches or we not witches? What's it gonna be? Because the reality is, when you blow out the candles on your birthday cake, are you casting a spell or are you making a wish? What's the difference? It's really not. So we practice these little pieces of magic
Oh
all
my
the
God.
time,
Yes.
all the time.
What you just said, wishing on a star, blowing the candle out, making that intention, that really that wish is intention. That's what that is. That's
Yeah,
that's really what that is. That's
yeah,
energy, intention. So it's huge. And if we all had that level of dominion in our life, we would not, I mean, yes, that none of these systems could really exist. So
right.
therefore we don't have dominion. Or they're trying, we do,
We
but
do.
we're being bamboozled, and there's an illusion of us not having that. We
Having
have
it.
to come to some level, even God, to
Yeah.
some level of external to get what we need internal. And that's why I got so excited when Mary did the song "It's the God in Me." And the reason why I got so excited is because they have so much influence,
Yeah.
and they are very, revered in the whole gospel space. And for them to say, no, it's the God in me, it's like, thank
Mhm.
you. We have to stop looking for so much external understanding and beginning to tap inside and have an understanding and knowing, within. We have another comment here from Sun King. I know who Sun King is. None of the three major Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have a divine feminine goddess deity represented in their pantheon. Now, that was a deep statement. Now, let me say, that would be Barry, my partner. He must have tapped in.
Hello, Barry. Well, yeah, and
So
Barry would be able to attest to the fact that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are all sent to be derivatives of each other, with one being the originator and then the other being the, revised version, and then the third being the revised version of the second and the first. So that would make sense that none of them have divine feminine.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it goes back, and I think even goddess, when we're saying goddess, I think we kind of have trivialized what that even means, because there, that divine, the divinity of the goddess, that's huge, and we kind of throw away the term like, I'm a try to be a goddess, or it's like, no, there's some real
Yeah.
lessons and depth in that
Yeah.
can give us so much power if we understand that. But yeah, to his point, these religions don't acknowledge this. And so we're missing women. We're
Mhm.
missing an understanding. We're putting women into either Mary or the prostitute. I mean, we're not
Mary or
caring.
Mary. You can either
Right,
be Mary
right.
the Virgin or you can be
Or
Mary the
Mary the
hoe. You
prostitute.
can't
Like
be, there's no
we're not
yeah.
getting, all the layers. And how could that be? How
Right.
could that be that we only have, this small, no,
Well, and it's,
you
I
know,
think it's to like the point that you made earlier about sensuality, sexuality, eroticism, and how all of those really create, are really in reference to our ability to create, our ability to
come
bring
on.
forth
Oh,
life. So if a system is designed to repress women's ability to create, to bring forth life, then that allows a system that oppresses women to remain in control. But as soon as women remember, really not discover, but when we remember
remember.
our
Yes.
ability to create and bring forth life through our eroticism, through our sensuality, through our sexuality, with control, with choice, with consent, and the way that we choose to express ourselves, it's going to reshape things. It's already happening, which is why these massive, movements, ridiculous pieces of legislation are coming down the pipeline so quickly, because they're like, oh shit,
Yes.
they're learning.
They're
They're
learning.
remembering. We gotta put them back in their little, yeah,
They're
no,
remember, and we
they're
are, and
remembering.
so this is why we get back to astrology.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
there's cycles that are happening and we're moving into a new era. And
Yeah.
so energetically, don't we have to believe that there's another energy that is happening that's beyond, that's bigger than our understanding, but very much felt.
Yeah.
And yes, we're remembering. That's when you say wake up. This is yes. There's a
Mhm.
lot of there's a lot of levels of getting woke right about now that we
Yeah.
need to tap into. And I think as Black women, this is a really powerful time for us to start choosing things. You said something, and I hope everybody, I wanted to underscore it while you were saying it, as far as we give life. Come on. We give life as women. And when we're watching Black women being afraid to have babies right now because of maternal health, do you know how much power you're stripping away when you're telling a Black woman to be afraid to give life?
Mm.
That is one of the most core, natural, amazing and only we can give life. We're the
Yeah.
only ones who literally can get the life out into the world.
Yeah.
That's some powerful shit, guys. And to now what's happening, I'm so grateful that when I had my babies, there was no IG, there was no any of this and that. I mean, it's already very stressful, yes, being pregnant. And you know this. I mean stressful in
Yeah.
the sense of your body is doing all these things.
Of
I
course.
can't imagine right now. It is just we have to tell the truth of yes, the maternal health statistics, but it's starting to me to feel chicken or the egg first because now I'm talking to younger Black women who are just afraid to period have pregnancy.
Because,
We're watching so many, so now if
mhm,
I'm so afraid and not learn, how do we learn how to really take care of our bodies to
mhm,
sustain, because we have the power to do it. We
right.
have the power to do it. And I don't want to, I know that just miscarriages, these things happen. Absolutely. And it's devastating and it's traumatic. At the same time, there's so much life that we have the ability to give. And if we could learn more about how our mind, body, and soul connect to giving the life, in addition to nutrition and going to doctor's appointments.
Mhm.
Your body is very smart, and the body is not going to allow anything to be inside of it to sustain it that it doesn't feel that it can really sustain. And so we have to start challenging and be thinking, how is our mental state? Where is our stress? Where's that epigenetic trauma? How is it manifesting ancestrally into our bodies where we're not being able to carry life and give life? This is all deep stuff, and it
Yeah.
comes very much from an understanding of something bigger. And so, this is why this topic really, it's so fundamental. We can't allow religion to minimize us. And I
Mhm.
just ask, I did not grow up in a very religious space, but my parents, my grandparents, my grandfather was a minister, and my dad was a musician. He was a drummer, and my grandfather would not allow my dad to play the drums like in
Mm.
the house. He had to go outside. He had to go because he said the drums were of the devil.
Yeah, girl. Yeah, well, I had a buffet of religious experiences. I was baptized Catholic, went to Catholic school, and then we were Baptist. And then after I left home, for college, my parents and the rest of my family got very heavily involved in a Baptist church, which they later left for religious differences, if you want to call it that, or creative differences. And I think I feel a sense of like empathy and compassion for Black women who have not yet allowed themselves to explore a
Yes.
deeper spiritual relationship outside of
Mhm.
religion. And I think that's where, we see retreats and we see women's circles and we see meditation experiences and breath work. Go into those spaces if they're being led by Black women. Go into those spaces. I strongly encourage you, go into those spaces, because without even knowing every single Black woman who's like this, I know that had it not been for spaces like that for me, I wouldn't have been able to start the journey that I started, because it took me being in a space with a Black woman who was a priestess and a teacher and a guide and a healer and a witch, and being in her container, that I was able to say, oh, okay, got it. I
It's
can set this little religious thing and put it over there. And it just opened up this huge
girl.
opportunity for
It's the
me that I don't know I would have found otherwise.
I have the same story, Kishan. I began my kind of spiritual journey, real like intentional spiritual journey in
Mhm.
2009. It wasn't with a Black woman. It was actually in Arizona with a bunch of white people. There was one Black though shamanic astrologer, and he really impacted me in a very interesting, because I had always known that this astrology was special, and he gave me that permission slip. Yes, it's very special. Keep going. But really the thing that really shifted it for me was a Black woman who is a trained, licensed doctoral therapist, counselor,
Mhm.
psychologist, but also a spirit. And now she's a priestess. She practices religious, but she also was very much a spiritualist. And she was it was me being with her that finally, to your point, finally opened up the dots, because I saw a Black woman just like me, educated,
Mm,
well educated, with her doctorate, had done these traditional means, and was a spiritualist. And she was
yeah,
able to show me that as a Black woman, the way that I was going to have to approach my mental health, I was only going to get but so far in
right,
these traditional spaces of understanding mental health, and that I needed to come into soul and spirit and God and source to get me to another level. And
right,
she's just was pivotal. And to this day, I always make sure I have a therapist and spiritual coach and spiritualist to help me, and see and have mentors who are coming
right,
from a variety of spaces, so that I can understand myself fully, and
right.
appreciate who I am. And Barry was in here. I don't know if he's still in the room. Sun King was up here, and just last week I found something deeper in my chart that really explains why I've had some tremendous challenge in this some
Mm,
aspects of my life. And it actually, I got really upset. I was mad. I'm like, why do I have all this challenge? Why has it got to be so hard? Like, just why? But what I had to do was, like, I literally had to go to some of my notes that says, understand that the challenge is pushing you to use your gifts more.
yeah.
That's what the challenge is about, to use your gifts. And again, I'm just hoping, yes, to your point, if you see Black women who are hosting spaces, I know Tosh is bringing a group of women to Bali to
Hmm.
do some, inner work and inner development. That's what my retreats are to do, inner work. I do think you need to vet people. I don't think that we
Oh,
can
for
just,
sure. Yeah, don't yeah, I mean, you learn as you go, you know what I'm saying? Like, even just like when people are looking for a new church home, you gotta try a couple places out. I would say that same logic would apply to finding spaces like this. And I also wanna say that, a big turning point for me in my spiritual walk, I would say, or my journey to just understanding was the more complicated the practice, the less real it became for me. If there was too many layers and too many things to remember and too many mantras to recite, I was like, no, I need the simple. Where's the simple version? Where's the accelerated? I want it. What
where's
is
the
it? Just
Cliff Note
make
version
it
for
cliff
me?
notes or keep it simple because truth is, you know, all of these systems we created, human beings. We all came up with all the language, every religion, every spiritual practice, every book, every concept, every philosophy. It's just of our own design. We developed it. I mean, it's keeping us sane in some cases, it's giving us a sense of grounding and purpose in other cases. But ultimately, you as the individual, you know what is for you and what is not for you. And if you can develop that sense of self awareness and that ability to trust yourself and know what your connection to source is outside of any practice, you're going to be more grounded, more self aware, more calm, more well than most people that you know.
Absolutely.
Because you can dive into human design, you can dive into astrology, you can dive into 55 different religions. Just don't join no cults or nothing if y'all can avoid it. But you can explore lots of things looking for answers. But I found that the simplest answers were the ones that resonated most with me.
Absolutely. And understand that your faith is an identity. It's a part of your identity, and therefore it goes through development.
Yeah.
And so there's
Yeah.
different stages we go through. So there's nothing, I am not saying, let go of religion. I'm saying develop within.
Yeah.
And Taj said something really here. She said, um, I hope this conversation liberates Black women and serves as invitation to explore and to let go of religion's lid. I love, well, you set up that, I thought that was beautiful what you said, as far as the little, trying to fly up and then, oh, well, forget it. I ain't gonna fly no more. We need to, so again, you can have the religion, you can have the container, but allow the lid to open so that you can also, I mean, I still very much, I mean, God and Jesus, and I mean, there's so many tenets of, Christianity, the Psalms. I love the Psalms. They're beautiful. I love reading Proverbs. I still can hold all of these. It's not
Mhm.
or, it's
Right.
and.
And
It's
right.
and. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ah, this was
Yeah,
good.
this was great.
Girl. we need part 5, 6. There's a lot to this, and again, it's a journey. And if I would just encourage, I know for myself, I'm still, as long as you have breath, you're going to be learning, and you should be learning about yourself, and about what is this energy that's beyond the human, and what's that about, and getting curious. So I just encourage us, go ahead and hold the religion if it feels like it's feeding you, and but don't hold the religion out of guilt. And don't, if you
No.
feel that the religion is making you feel like you're compromising yourself in some way, um,
Then it
yeah,
might be time
you
to
gotta.
reassess. I mean, I think when we go into, and I know we're wrapping up soon, when we go into the question about religion, we're typically going because we're seeking something. We want answers to
Yes.
the where do we come from, and why are we here, and what are we supposed to do while we're here, and then where do we go when it all ends? And ultimately, those are questions that religious systems hope to answer. I think what was most liberating for me was accepting that I might not have answers to any of those questions ever,
Ever.
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 And for me, it was about what can I do to find peace?
Yes.
And that's the question that I stuck with. And that's the question that led me. And that's the question that still leads me now, because all that other shit really doesn't matter as much as we think it does.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I approach it, and I want to offer, obviously, I call it's funny. I've been trying to decide, I don't like to say, oh, I don't do astrology readings. I mean, I'm reading a chart to a certain degree, but I'm
Hmm.
really using it so that you better, the way that I handle when I do an astrology self-care session, just to kind of give you context. It's not me, you coming in and I'm like, girl, this is what's going on. You got a
You don't
rising
have a
of I
crystal
don't
ball, can
I
you?
don't
No,
have
it's
I
not.
don't do that. I don't say, "Oh, your moon is in this, so you got it." I don't do any of that. What I do is I say, "So
Not in
how are you
Cleo.
feeling?"
How are
How
you
are and
feeling?
I ask about 5 questions related to how are you?
Okay.
What are some things that have always felt challenging for you? What are some of the things you've always known you've done really, really well? And where do you wanna go? What do you wanna achieve in your life? And I
Mm,
give all of that space for women to just talk it out. This is the counselor in me, okay? The coach, to talk it out. And then after that, I say, okay, everything you just said, we're
mhm.
going to be able to see it in the chart. And I'm going to show you your chart now because you just told your story. So I'm going to just show you your story because the chart is just a living demonstration of the story you're living. But what
Wow.
it does is it shows also the potential of where you can go. It's showing both. It's very magical when you really start understanding this. It's like you are living this and you have the potential to expand even more in this way and use this gift that you just talked about so that it can
Mhm.
address this challenge that you also just talked about.
Right.
Huge difference than
Yeah.
reading just telling you. And so if you are someone and you're curious, like, oh, well, that's not so. We ain't talk. Well, I didn't mention none about that. It's just you. It's just
Well,
another
true.
way.
Just those questions, just the questions alone is enough to give somebody an opportunity to look a little bit deeper without even knowing anything about their chart at all. So that's
The chart's
yeah,
just confirming it for you. That's
exactly.
really the only reason I pull the chart up is so that
Yeah.
you can feel validated and confirmed in what, because I'm not gonna guess and try to figure out and magic. No, your story is your story. And this is
Mhm.
this is a way for you to get even more confirmation. And this
Right.
is a way for me to put a flashlight on some blind spots that you may have been disregarding. And that's
Right.
the counselor in me, honestly, doing that. Just trying to show you some areas you're saying this and you're saying this, how do they connect?
That's right.
That's all it
That's right.
is.
Yeah.
So, we've got a really long comment here from Valerie, and
Welcome,
Valerie's my
Valerie.
HU
Hey,
sis.
Valerie.
Kind of, let me see.
Shalom.
Let me see if it'll fit here. All right. I grew up Baptist and still am. When I feel myself needing to be grounded, I always read the book of Proverbs. Yep, not very open to another avenue. Then in 2009, I started dating a Buddhist. We're still together. And then I got certified to teach yoga. I stumbled upon both, but accident, and it opened my eyes to a wider range of
That's
spirituality.
lovely.
Come on,
That's the whole
Val.
point, Valerie.
That
Yeah,
was
I
the
tell people, like,
whole
I don't
point.
there's a buffet out there of options, of avenues, of pathways, of answers, of philosophies. Don't limit yourself to just one, especially as a grown ass woman, especially old ass adult. give yourself an opportunity to seek your answers in different places. And you might be, for me, the fun part is seeing the similarities. It's like, oh, that's the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita is also okay. So it ain't that different after all. Well, there you go. You know?
There you go.
So yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thank
Your
you,
mom just
Simone.
got here. She said, "I'm
Hey,
late. I'm
mom.
gonna go back and listen." Yes,
It's all
please.
good. Yeah. Go back
Thank
and
you.
check it out.
Thank you, Simone. She said this was amazing, ladies. Thank you.
Yay.
You're welcome, Simone. Again, I really, Keyshawn is my sister friend. And, I always enjoy talking about these subjects with you because we both,
Yeah.
have had similar experiences, but you always bring another lens to the conversation. And,
Mhm.
and I try to bring another lens. So I appreciate everyone tuning in. We usually wrap up trying to spotlight any features, anything you'd like to spotlight,
The
Keyshawn?
only thing I'll spotlight is similar to what I spotlighted last week, but I'm going to spotlight it again just in
Keep
case for
spotlighting
those
it,
who
girl.
didn't, who didn't hear about it. I have been invited to be a part of a virtual summit. It's completely free and it happens June 8th through 11th and it's being hosted by Dawn Rivers. It's a business of wellness summit that's specifically targeting women and myself and I think like 16 other women are going to be sharing
Mm.
the stage and offering some insight for that. So if you want to sign up for that, you can find the link on my bio on Instagram. It's totally free, and I think it's going to be a great experience for everyone. It's me, one of the many projects that I'm lending my time, energy, and effort to support the growth of businesses of other Black women. So I'm happy about that.
Yes, y'all. So all you got to do, go to IG, follow follow at Keyshawn Rains. Don't just go in her link and look at her. Follow her and like her stuff. And then
Yeah.
yes, go into her bio and she's got it very organized, guys. Don't worry, her she's very organized. You're gonna be able to find it easily. And sign up. That is free 99.
Free 99.
So free 99. So no excuses. And it sounds like you're gonna have a really diverse group of
Yeah.
people presenting. So that's awesome. Similar, I already said I too am doing a virtual summit. Mine is not free 99, but
Yours is
there
not
is
free
a way.
99, right?
It's not free 99.
But if
However,
there's a way.
there's
I
a
know.
way. There's a way to make it free 99, kind of.
That's right.
So if you go to my link in my Instagram bio right
Okay.
there, so at
Mm-hmm.
Kenya MJ Music, and I'm sorry that you're seeing spammy things in the feed because I've been hacked, but it's not affecting my actual page. So
Okay,
that's
that's
another
good.
story. And the page is fine, but or
Okay,
my profile's fine. But go to my
good.
link and you can sign up. But there is a loop if you join my Patreon, which is also in that same link in the bio on Instagram. There's a 30-day free trial. So if you join for free 30-day and then you're going to get I'm going to once I see that you've joined, I'm going to welcome you and I'm going to give you a promo code to attend the virtual event for free because you're now a Patreon
Hey,
member. That's how
yes,
you bypass the payment. I'm telling the
there we
secrets. I shouldn't
go.
be telling you this.
You're
Where am I
giving
going to make any
away,
money?
giving away the
So,
goods.
but but if you don't want to go through all that, you just like, I just want to go, I'll give the $50. It's $50. Although I do have a promo code to make it $40 right now. And that promo code is just FYV for finding your voice, FYV Summit 23. And then you can
Mm,
use that as a when you check out and you'll get $10 off. But you can bypass all that. If you just go to patreon.com and become a subscriber, you can always end your subscription. Or if you like what I'm talking about, you can stay. So,
awesome.
all righty. Well, we're going to wrap up. We'll be back, right? I think, yes, we're
We'll
good. We'll
be
be
back.
back
Let's
next week.
back. Yeah, we'll be back next week. We had to, it was graduation season, so we had graduation and like another graduation. So now we're back. Now we're back for real.
That's right. I was in a grad. Okay,
You had a
cool.
graduation, and then I had a graduation. So we have graduated. So we'll
We
be
have
back.
graduated and we'll be back. We do not know what we're talking about next
Not
week.
yet.
So you just got to tune in. You know it's going to be good. They're all
It's gonna be
juicy.
good
They're all
every
good. They're
time.
all good
Every
every
time.
time. All right. You guys stay blessed, stay safe in
Yeah.
these streets, and go wake up to value into us perfectly. Open yourself up
Yeah.
to experience. Just try an otherness. Just
That's
try
right.
it, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's just I'm gonna try this meditate. I'm gonna go sit in the grass. Whatever. Just connect.
Light a
Just
candle.
light a
Cast a little
candle.
spell if you want to. It's fine. You ain't gonna get in
Sit in
trouble.
a bathtub. with, just some words and just see if you can just just have a conversation with God in a different
Mm,
space.
there
That's
you
all.
go. I love
Yeah.
those.
So,
Yeah.
all right. We will see you
Encouraging.
guys. I'm going to end the broadcast, but I'll see you guys later. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.